Good morning, team. Welcome to the stream. Today is Thursday, October 19th. Just getting into the private client fund. We'll see what the top performing tickers are on the day. Had some interesting earnings last night with Tesla and Netflix. Crushed our Netflix short puts. Looking good. With Netflix, we've been swing short. Let's see. Go with the 90-day. Built in a lot over 445s and was getting profit into those breakdowns of 415s. Each time we were taking profit, we kind of recapped this on the last stream as well. You can definitely go back in the vault, look back through July and August for those trade entries and see how it's played out over time. These levels, what I wanted to show you is all of these fib levels were mapped out after those August or July highs after earnings. I go farther on the yearly. You can see the low point that I chose was low of year on the retest of the breakout from last year's close, right? So flagged for a while over 285s, it pushed into 335s and beyond, pulled back into 285s, and then got that really good run into 485s, right? Just mapping that backwards gave us these fib retracements. You can see on the downside, it's conformed to those pretty well, right? We rejected those 445s, sold off on continuation. We've been progressively taking profit out of all of the short calls. As we started getting into the 360 and 340 level, we were starting to sell more puts as well, just expecting some type of bounce, right? So overnight, 3 of these are up 5 figures each. The short 365 puts for November, 37%, short 350s for January, 23%, and short 355s for December, 32% profit. Those are my top 3 positions on the day, followed by BXX, Boyle, Tesla, TSLY, and some more Netflix. Short 320 puts for January, 77% profit. What we're going to do is I'll watch this bounce today into 415, and I'm probably just going to start selling more calls. But really good low risk area to be selling into the puts on that low band. We did get a pretty significant reversal on earnings, which obviously helped out overnight. I also posted on X that the most expensive puts on Monday were Netflix. All right, just going back and looking at those, you can definitely pull up the options charts and study those as well. Let's see what else. Yeah, might as well go for Tesla and Tesla. Tesla got a little bit of continuation on that breakdown of 245s into 235s and 225s this morning. Again, right against the levels. This is very similar to Netflix. All I did was draw the fib retracements from the earnings high to the previous retest of the breakout, right? So that's how we got those levels. You can see since earnings in July, we've just been kind of sideways and choppy, basically over under the 61.8 retrace, but obviously breaking down today with a gap down and continuation on earnings. You can see again that rejection of 265s. This is where we were selling additional calls as we were locking short put profit and getting that rollover today. I am going to look at selling puts before the end of the week. I'm not sure that the sell-off is done today, so we'll let it go a little bit more or chop around here. Seasonality wise, we should see some basing through the end of October and potentially a bounce into November. I'm just looking at, final wins on the short calls running out, final wins on the short puts just due to time decay running out as well. I've got to build some larger positions again in Tesla. I think it's a good week to do it. We'll see if we break down into that 215 level or we're able to hold here and try for a bounce. Short 290 calls for December, 88%. Short 280s for November, 94%. Short 275s for March, 66%. Short 290s for June, 55%. A lot of those were $3,000 and $4,000 and $5,000 a piece at the time we sold them. Pretty significant wins. And short 220 puts, I'm still at 27% profit. even with the sell-off. Those expire January as well. I'll probably look at selling some more 215s to 205s into January and the spring, once we get a little bit more confirmation of at least a sideways hold. Until then, still just progressively locking profit. All right, again, I just wanted to remind you that I will be gone after the market opens. We'll just do these pre-market sessions. I did do a live session yesterday afternoon as well. That'll be in the vault for you today. And Kylie should be able to get this one in the vault for you today as well. Let's see, I've got some more profit to take out of SOXS also. So we've seen a few bounces back into that $12 area. The short $12 calls for January, even on this week's bounce, are 21%. November short 11s are 27%. I've got November short $10 puts at 37%, right? So we talked previously about building the swing short over 1250s and the retest, and then covering into our target under 10 into 965. So really good covers on that day. We got a little bit of a reversal, and I did sell the puts against it. We got the bounce over the last week, and that's already decayed those 37%. Then a little bit of rollover and continuation today. If we're able to bounce on the semis, we'll continue crushing the short calls as well. I've got some short May $11 calls that are only 3%, and some short May 12s that are about 5%. I'll be adding into those. Yeah, I think we'll see that bounce. I'm going to sell just the calls on SOXS. Take some more premium out of it. The equity position on SOXS is 6.9% on the bounce. I have also got a ton of SMCI. Very similar to NVIDIA, we've traded at the same just based on sympathy and timing. The topping was into 345s and 355s into earnings in August. We were already short the next day and catching the gap down, taking profit out of equity and short calls. We continued building in on this first pull into the bands. I was selling puts. We got back over 285s and I was selling calls again. We've had a lot of sideways action since then. We had another touch of the band at the lows into 215s where we sold additional puts and got that bounce all the way back into 300s, 315s. We sold more calls, and again, just crushing calls against puts at the right time with proper bounces off of the high and low band. I've got short December 250 puts, 54%, short 200 puts for January, 47%, short 240s for January, 48%, short 230s for February, 42%, short 230s in March, 31%, short 200s, January 2025, 16%, short 240s, January 2025, 19%, against short 165 calls, 55%. I'm going to take the rest of my profits on the short calls that are in the 80 to 90% range, pretty much everything over 280s to 320s. And yeah, a lot of progressive exits available. Really good wins. Yeah, a couple of those short positions are mid 5 figures alone. Calls did really well, and running out of expiration, I'm going to add a little bit more to the short calls, selling again the 315 to 335, moving into the spring. Seva pushing 12% on equity. We're still sideways and chopping. I do expect that to roll over and fail the $10 mark. I think you can still look at selling out of the money 15 to 1750 calls, which was our plan previously, into 20, looking for those to go out of the money. A mix of equity and short calls, really good profit. I'll probably sell some more 15s into December and January. Sometimes we get some faster spikes through November, but it should still roll over and close the year flat. Roku, 7.8% on swing short equity, even with the bounce. Probably an area along with Netflix I'll watch and look at selling some puts. I've got a ton of short calls that are running into final expirations. Short 70s, 57%, and short 60s, 38%, both expiring in January. I've got some others in the 65 range that are full wins. Yeah, we were just looking for those to go out of the money from 75, right? So we got that continuation and follow through. Probably time to look at selling puts, but this one's been kind of heavy all year. We're starting to see a bigger shoulder, bigger head, the formation of another shoulder. I think some trapping into here. We're still looking at that target into 60. And, we might roll over this week and finish that out. I'll probably try to be a little bit patient, continue closing some more short calls, short equity, but get ready to start selling some puts a little bit deeper out of the money. PLTR went all out of the long. Still have some short puts in play, flip the long equity into short equity. We talked about that bounce off of 15s. If we didn't see any strong follow out and start selling into the short calls, I'll be selling more 20s and 1750s today. Flip the equity short already. I've got short $12 puts at 81% for January, short 15 puts at 71% for January. And I'm going to finalize those today or tomorrow. A little bit of a bounce. We'll see if we can get back into the 18 zone and write some more calls as I exit those puts and prepare for this to probably not break out. We'll see though. There's still room into 20s in the high band. I think we're running into some topping and some profit taking into November, and we'll probably close back under that zone. Abe for Tesla put strikes. I would still stay under 215s to 185s. If we look back on it, lower band right now is 235s. We've seen it as low as 215s and below over the last couple of earnings. I think we're still consolidating sideways. There's no real reason for this to sell off dramatically. News wasn't great on earnings, but it wasn't terrible either. It was kind of to be expected. And we're just trending along, crushing some premium, right? So I still think anything really under 200 should be pretty safe, but I'll probably be selling into the 215, 205 area like we talked about. Oh, I wanted to go over Zion as well. Earnings on this after we flipped it short again and crushed yesterday. So that helped out. Let's see. Got a bunch on this. It is only 4.9% on swing short equity. That's after multiple wins on the long side. Definitely go back in the vault and study these. We've been writing puts since this very dramatic sell-off into 25s. We continued adding the short puts on the second pull into 20s, and then took the equity long, took some calls as well, and topped out a lot of those into 37s. Exits on equity and calls as we bounced again. The last time I was already flipping it short. I've already locked profit into 30s, 2s, and 31s. Did sell some additional puts. We got that bounce back into 35s. Added back some swing short equity, short calls against the short puts. Yeah, all of the puts are 50, 60, 70, 80, 90% wins. A lot of these are 25s, 30s, and 35s through October, November, and January. Then I'm going to write some more short calls on this. YUMC, we've got the finals as well. One day, one plan, took about 5 minutes, and this has been paying us for weeks. All right, so we saw that spike over 57.50 into 58s where we wrote a lot of out calls that we expected to go out of the money. I used the 55s, the 57.50s, and the 60s into October, November, and January. Those are 98%, 92%, 87%, 90%, 78%, 64%, 67%, 56%. But yeah, from 58s, we've just chopped sideways, gave up 55s the first time. We were already taking profit, bounced back over, and I sold a little bit more on that push over 55. Then we've just kind of trended sideways and slow faded over the last little bit. Still should close sideways into the end of the year. I think you can still write anything over the $55 to $60 mark, risking bounces and continuing to progressively take profit out of it. Getting into all of the finals on WeWork as well. They were able to bounce it around 250 for a little bit, but then it gave up into 2s, tried to bounce it again. That was short on the fast spike over 5s into 6s. We wrote a bunch of calls in the money, looking for those to fail. My lowest strike that I wrote was 250s for March. Those are 79%. I've got everything: 250s, 3s, 350s, 4s, 450s, 5s, 550s, right? All the way from November, December, January, and March. So quite a bit of premium. We'll just continue locking that as well. Upstart. Very similar to a lot of what we've seen across the board, just sideways chop after a pretty dramatic sell-off. We were already building in over 65s. We got those gap downs and progressive exits through 55 and 45. As it trended sideways over 30s, retesting 35s, we continued building into that short. I still have short 30s to short 20s. 20s, 2250s, and 25s are still in the money, pushing 56%, 29%, 57%, and 21%. So looking pretty decent. Equity, I've continued averaging in and adding back to that. Progressive exits along the way, it's only around 3% on equity now. I think you can still write calls on this over 2750 to 30s, risking faster spikes or retests, but not any real reason for this to break out. We'll see how earnings go on the 7th. John had mentioned Uber yesterday. I still have the short calls from 45. I'm probably going to write more into 35 and 40s. Short 45s for December. We saw a lot of that sideways rejection and resistance. These are 27%. And continue taking profit out of those. I think you can sell anything over the $45 mark still. Looking for that kind of just to roll over, right? It's kind of just a slow arcing fade. So far, we're touching the band, not getting very significant bounces off of it. There's still room to retest over VWAP, and the high band is 4750s. We might see a faster spike into November. I think it's less likely this year, but riding above that level, even if it gets retested, probably have some room and time to collect premium. TSLY, we've got the short $12 calls still. 51% for February, 67% for November. Short equity in this account is 8.9%. The third account that I looked at today, we're pushing 11% because I haven't added back into that one. But yeah, still swing short, progressively locking profit and premium. This is going to make new low of year in about 40 cents. Sorry, it did this morning on the gap down with Tesla. Yeah, we're at new low of year. Once the market opens, that'll update. I told everybody that was holding these that it was coming 3 weeks ago. And here we are, faster than expected. I thought it would take a month or two. But the Tesla earnings crush obviously helped, right? We've been over Rivian, Roblox, QS, Qualcomm, Peloton, PLTR, Pinterest. I think there's still time on this. Getting into first exits, 15 to 30% profits. We talked about that. Retest over 2750s into 29s, and then adding again at 2750s. Still a lot of sideways chop. Never retested our higher alert into 30s, and we're just trending sideways, right? So it's pretty much been all year over under 25s, and anything over that mark, 2750s to 30s, have been really good entries for short call premium that just continues to get chopped up in decay. There is earnings coming on October 30th. And I'm not expecting too explosive of a move through that, but we might see a faster spike if the news is good. Got some more finals on FI, and I think I'll sell some additional Fiserv 115 to 125 short calls. Another one that has just been a slow fade, right? We've got some earnings coming up on the 24th. Yeah, I'll write some this week. I'll go a little bit farther out though, risking a bounce. We've got room into 115s to 125s for sure if earnings are good. This has been a pretty decent swing short premium fade since the last earnings, over 125s into 130. The 130 calls that I sold for January are 93%. 115s for January are 71%. 125s for December are 92%. I've got some more in the 80s and 70s in that range. Yeah, I'll still stay with the 115s. We'll just go farther out. Probably February, March, April. These are some good premiums. I haven't taken too much profit out of this progressively. I'm going to lock some more today, free up some size and rewrite some additional contracts. I think you could look at selling puts, but I'd still stay under 95 to 85. I'm still definitely leaning more towards heavier side on the short calls, but there is room to hold the lows into November and bounce, kind of close the year flat, right? Maybe right around 115s actually. We'll see. FedEx doing pretty well also. We recapped that, but I'm getting into second and third exits. 65% plus profit. I will probably sell some more CAVA as well. Short 50s, 45s, and 40s, everything into 100, 100, 97, 94, 88, 86, 83, 72. I've got short puts against that. October 35 short puts, 46%. So I'm going to sell more equity and continue writing 35 calls and higher. Some more equity on that. Looking good. All right, team. We'll wrap up on that. Message me if you need anything else today. Trade safe as always. I'm here for you. If you like the afternoon sessions, let me know what day works best for you. Leaning towards Wednesday. Thanks so much, team. Have an awesome day.